This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
We're at Poupart NFL. Montreal hat on and everything. There you go. We got the hat of the former Montreal owner and former Marlins owner. Although this logo's way better than the one Loria came up with. The one Loria came up with sucked. That was terrible. You like this logo? I mean, nothing beats the original, but I like this one.
I like it very much, actually. No, it's a very cool hat. I was like noticing it when I was backstage there. It's like, yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I bought this 2 years ago when we were doing Fan Fest at the Marlins Park. And I went into their store and I saw the hat and I said, bought, done, history in the archives. It is a sweet lid, man. It really is. I just hope they, not to bore people now because we're going to talk baseball. See, the good thing about Alain, I can talk any damn sport with this guy. That's the beauty. He follows it all. But anyway, on the baseball side, are these idiots really going to keep this lockout going that long? Really?
You're talking to Expos.
I know, but
never say never. Yeah. To suggest that it's not a possibility, yeah, no, anything's possible. I don't put anything past anybody. It's just they'll get what they want if they have to shut down or delay the start of the season. Yeah.
Where are you with the game nowadays? Because it's completely different than what you and I grew up with. Home run or strikeout, and that's it. There's nothing in between. How are you with the game nowadays?
No, I don't like it, and it's not just the fact that I'm an extraordinarily bitter Expos fan who saw the best team in franchise history, never had a chance to compete for the World Series.
Amen.
And then basically completely jerked around the franchise until they basically had no choice but to move. And then you mentioned the name.
By the way, not only was the Expos great, I think we were headed for one of the great World Series of all time because the Yankees
were very good. Yep.
Were monstrous then. And obviously they picked apart the Expos to make themselves better, by the way, over the next couple of years, like everybody else did.
Pretty much.
But that Yankee Montreal, I mean, who's to say that would have been Yankees Montreal? But you kind of figure that year, 94, it was going to be Yankees Montreal. And it just looked like it was going to be a classic between those two, dude.
Yeah, no, and now the game is like, first of all, it's like the pitcher goes 4 innings. That's a miracle. Changes all over the place. Everything is just so slow. It's completely utterly boring to me.
Yeah, it is. All right, so I guess you were in the batters or in the batter's box waiting on the
circle. There you go.
Yeah. So you were waiting to get in. They were asking me about Mike McDaniel, and I'm not a big on the never been guy, but we've talked about it. I like the guy that's bounced around a little bit if I'm going to take that chance.
Right.
I'm a Caldwell guy, but I do understand the Daboll one. So if we put Alain Poupart in Chris Greer's seat, who is the ideal head coach for the Miami Dolphins?
No, I've told you. For the Miami Dolphins, I'm not a fan of hiring a first-time head coach either. Having said that, like you mentioned, Daboll's been around a long time. He's almost, I don't want to say he's
25 years, bro. 25 years.
Almost, I don't want to say he's almost a first-time head coach, but kind of the thing about Daboll, though, we have to ask ourselves this, and this is going to piss off some people, but so be it. Brian Daboll, he's going to ask himself this very question if the Dolphins make him an offer. Do I really want to go coach the Dolphins and have to face Josh Allen twice a year with a quarterback who has maybe a 1% chance of ever becoming anywhere near that good? I think that's a question we have to ask ourselves. And, of course, we're going to get into the whole debate. But that's my feeling with Brian Daboll. I like Doug Peterson. I like Jim Caldwell, as you mentioned. I find Mike McDaniel very intriguing, but we've gone the route of the young first-time head coach, the 30-something, and it hasn't panned out. And Mike McDaniel maybe has a little bit of that Adam Gase vibe, who's like a really smart guy, but can he coach, Grumman and both sides of the ball?
Can he build a staff?
Correct, that too.
Although
he works with a lot of great people in Washington. You look at that staff in Washington. And I've seen some clips of they were doing like a group interview, and they speak highly of him. Now, has he developed a relationship with other people outside who he could convince to come here? That's the big question. He certainly wouldn't be my first choice. I find him very intriguing among the first-time head coaches, behind Brian Daboll, who's the guy. Now the thing is also apparently Joe Shane, who I believe is assistant GM in Buffalo, or is in the front office, is getting a second interview for the Giants GM job, and one has to think that if he does get that job, he's calling Brian Daboll and correct, and maybe that becomes a package deal, and the compensation is moot anyway. So
you'd rather work with the Giant quarterback?
You don't have to face Josh Allen twice a year. That's one positive over there.
If you have a good defense, why would you worry about that? Because
again, Josh Allen is going to be a problem in this division for a decade.
But wouldn't the guy that trained him, wouldn't the Jedi Master who trained the Padawan know how to defend the Padawan?
Partly, number one. Number two, considering his combination.
By the way, I could have never done this with Omar Kelly.
Well, Omar doesn't like Josh Allen, does he?
No, I'm talking about the Star Wars references.
Oh,
he would not have picked up on.
No, the problem is, it's one thing to know how to stop Josh Allen. The problem is that the dude can run and he can pass. And this year he learned you don't have to chuck it down the field all the time if it's not open. So now he's learned patience on top of that. So he's refining the raw edges, because there's a guy who was as raw as you could get when he first got in, except he was stupid talented because of his size, because of his running ability, because of his arm. Yeah. So, and the other part of the equation we also have to factor in is right now, which looks like a more stable situation. Is it the Giants with John Mara, Joe Shane, if it's the guy who's hired, or is it the Dolphins with Stephen Ross and Chris Greer? That's another question that Brian Daboll would have to ask himself.
Yeah. No,
and again, and you look at the other quarterbacks in the division. So I don't think it's a lock that if Brian Daboll has this choice, clearly, you want to take the Giants job or you want to take the Dolphins job? Not 100% sure that he would take the Dolphins job. And on top of that, there's also Chicago factoring in, because apparently they're also hot after him as well.
By the way, I hear, and I don't know what you're hearing, but I hear that in that building, Daboll's like miles ahead of everybody. Like, that's the guy they really want. I don't know. You heard the same thing?
What building?
Miami. Like, that's the guy they want.
Well, he's the guy, again, if you're saying you're all in on Tua, then he's the guy who makes the most sense, considering he's got the working relationship with him. Yeah, he's the guy who makes sense. But Peterson also makes sense, because Peterson has the RPO experience with Carson Wentz in Philly, and he's a former head coach. But I could see Daboll as being the guy as well.
Well, the good thing is you might be able to run an RPO this year, because they'll actually go get a running back this year,
Are we sure about that?
I'm positive.
We hope. Are we sure?
The New England way is not to really normally invest in running backs. So somebody was kind of cock blocking the situation there and saying, yeah, we don't need to get a big time back or anything like that. So you will see a back somewhere in the first 3 rounds or in free agency this year added to the Dolphins. That's just my prediction. You know what I mean? But that's,
long overdue.
Yeah. Well, get the line first. If you don't get the line, it doesn't matter who you had at running back, unless he's Barry Sanders. You got to get that line, dude. You have to. Now, let me ask you a question, because you've brought it up now. So I have to follow it up with this.
Go for it.
If Daboll is wanted that much by others, so then there's a good chance that Miami could fail in grabbing Daboll. So who's plan B in your eyes?
Then I think you could go back. Here's the thing is, there have been 7 candidates who have been reported as being guys the Dolphins have requested to interview. I don't know that there's anybody that really jumps out, other than Daboll's the one who really jumps out. Among those 7, I'm not buying Kellen Moore as a really, really strong candidate. I'm not buying Mike McDaniel as a really, really
I'm with you, bro.
Who's the other offensive guy?
And I want nothing to do with Quinn. I've already seen, that, and I've already seen Leslie Frazier.
And Dan Joseph had a very unsuccessful stint with Denver after he left the Dolphins. And then there's a guy Thomas Brown from the Rams.
Too young.
He was a running backs coach last year. So Yeah, I think if it's not Daboll, maybe they go outside the parameters. It's not the Dolphins have conducting this search very, very privately. They're not even after the fact announcing completed head coaching interviews, unlike 5 other teams that are doing so, like the Bears, the Vikings, the Texans, the Giants, and I forget there's a 5th one. They're announcing every time they complete an interview. They're announcing them. The Dolphins are not doing that. They're going the secret way. Same, Jacksonville's doing the same thing the Dolphins are doing.
I was going, well, maybe they don't want public to know or any of that because they don't want their competition to know. But the only problem is that you and I know behind the scenes. I was thinking about this. These GMs are asking these agents. The agents are going to tell you, my guy interviewed with this guy, and this guy, and this guy, because they want to create leverage for their client. So they're not going to go, well, I can't tell you who they've interviewed with, because now you have no leverage, because then the guy on the other side is going, well, okay, I guess he has an interview with anybody, so we're not competing against anybody. And the agent's going to say, oh, no, Cincinnati interviewed him, and Boston interviewed him, and Jacksonville interviewed him, and Topeka interviewed him, and so they're gonna brag like crazy. So within the circles, everybody knows where everybody's interviewed. So you're really not getting any kind of an advantage by keeping it out of the public, is my point.
No, but I don't think they're doing it for competitive advantage. I think they're doing it. I believe my guess is they want to avoid public scrutiny, and they don't want to be like, they don't want to hear fans bitching about who they're interviewing and who they're not interviewing. That's my best guess. I don't see necessarily once the interview has been completed, and in the past the Dolphins have announced those. It's just this time they decided not to do it. So having said all that, even though he hasn't been identified as one of the candidates the Dolphins want to talk to, I find it hard to believe that they're not going to speak to Doug Peterson.
We asked Cam that earlier. Like, well, we haven't heard about Cam. We haven't heard like my guy Caldwell. I haven't heard of Jack Del Rio. Haven't heard of any of these kind of former coaches that could be available to you. So I'm wondering, he thinks there still could be a second wave that's added to it. Do you feel the same way also, that there could be?
No question.
Okay.
No question. I refuse to believe that the 7 candidates that have been identified are the 7 guys that it's going to come down to. I'm not buying that for a second.
Yeah, and they may have interviewed more than 7, and we just don't know.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
That's the whole thing behind it. How active do you expect them to be in free agency? Because they do have to sign their own. They have several that they have to sign their own. And so people are all talking about, well, go sign a wide receiver, go trade for Calvin Ridley, go to do this. What should they do in your eyes for free agency?
Well, the first step is always, okay, see who you got. The Dolphins are like more than 20 free agents of their own. So the first step is, okay, who do we need to bring back? And to me, that's Agba. And if you're keeping Tua, absolutely Gesicki, you need to bring him back. I definitely want to bring back Nick Needham, even though he's an RFA, so all you need to do is tag him.
Matt Collins,
no question about it. I'm trying to think. I mean, there are a bunch of guys who are not necessarily guys that
Smythe is 1 more year, right? Or
no, Smythe is a UFA as well. I don't know that he falls under the category of a must bring back.
Smythe might be gone because you elevate Hunter, right, to become the blocker catcher.
Hunter is not a blocker. Right. That's apples and oranges.
So then you're going to keep Smythe then.
Maybe. I don't think he's going to break the bank anywhere he goes. That's the beauty of Smythe. Offense to him. So, ideally you keep him, but I don't think he's a must. I mean, because when you may need to prioritize, and to me, it's Agba 1, Gesicki 2, Needham 3, and then you're going to have to address the X situation. You and I have gone back and forth on this. I know you want him traded yesterday.
No, it's not that I want him traded. Well, I mean, I would have traded him, but he's traded. He will be traded. You cannot do all the signing, keep all your guys, maybe find a lineman or 2 in free agency, and keep X and Jones. Can't do it. It will not work. You're gonna choke yourself to death out there. They're gonna have to free up one of those corners. And as you've said before, the Byron Jones deal is near impossible to move. The X deal is very movable right now. Before you have to give them the extra money, let the other team give them the extra money. Let the other team give them the new extension. that they'll have to work out with him. That's probably.
Would you actually think a team's going to trade for X without this contract situation being resolved to X's satisfaction? I'm not.
No, it'll be part of the trade that they'll agree on a deal. Right? Yeah, of course, dude. No, you've seen it 100 times.
Okay,
Don't trade.
Here's the thing. There's, to me, they have enough cap space and not enough needs that they have to fill where it can't work, where you can't make X happy and keep him. I don't think it's a lock that he's being traded. I could certainly see it because trading him would bring you a lot of cap flexibility. I don't think it's a lock like you seem to think it is, because again, especially if they're not shopping for a big time quarterback who would eat up a lot of the cap space that they have, then they have a lot more maneuverability. And then you can take care of the guys you need to take care of. You can go get an offensive lineman in free agency. Again, the problem with getting offensive linemen in free agency is, generally speaking, the guys who are real good, teams don't let them go.
Right.
They don't let them walk. That's the problem. I mean, everybody wants to go get even Terran Armstead, for example, is a very good player. If he's right physically, are we really thinking the Saints are going to just say, yeah, go right ahead, you can leave? Those are few and far between. You need a situation like Trent Williams had in Washington, where he was like
a bitter
player.
Yeah, a bad team, and he wants out, and
correct.
Yeah. You're right.
So you may be able to get like a second tier, like let's say somebody better than Eric Flowers, but in that kind of range in terms of ability. And not you're not getting a Trent Williams. That was a complete fluke that San Francisco lucked into, and I mean they wind up with one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL, and the Dolphins could only be so lucky,
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. Although I believe it's a master lock. I don't know if the company Masters.
Oh, I know.
They become sponsors of our lock of the week, and that's my lock of the week. That X will be Historia. Okay. History. They gotta play Iggy. They gotta find out this year.
You're still on the Iggy roll?
Yeah, they have no choice. They drafted the kid. They have to play him. So my thing is, they'll trade X, they'll elevate Iggy, and they'll sign some kind of a veteran that'll be the insurance policy. If Iggy's not playing well, he'll jump in, that kind of stuff. I think that's what will happen this year. Or they'll draft another kid who will then compete with Iggy or something like that. But they have no choice. It's 5 years that they have to find out about him. This is year 3 now. You have to go and find out and play him to see if he can. Plus, they have no choice. I mean, what are you going to do? You can't let him sit there for 5 years, dude. You got to.
Well, it's 5 years if you pick up the 5th-year option, which they ain't, spoiler alert, they ain't doing.
Right. No, if you don't play him this year, obviously you're not picking it up.
Well, unless he completely balls out this year, there's no chance they pick up the 5th-year option because the decision has to be made in May of 2023. And the odds of that happening, I mean, dude, I would love nothing more than kid comes on and be a star. I just don't see it. Maybe there's one of those guys that
I can't give up on him. He's barely played, dude. I got to see him play before I can give up on him, dude. I mean, come on.
In the preseason,
he played in the SEC. He played at Auburn. He can't be bad, dude.
Those coaches have seen him in practice every single solitary day, and they determined he wasn't even worthy of putting it on the field on defense. I mean,
yeah, well, because the outsides, he doesn't play the slot. He's not a slot guy. So, I mean, they have their starters on the outside, so I get it. But they've got to find out about him this year. So that's why I'm pretty sure that X gets traded, and then they'll do what I told you. I think they'll bring in some kind of a veteran and then see if Iggy can play or not.
Okay, fair enough. But we need to be ready then for the secondary to take a dip if that happens.
Yeah, no, definitely. If he can't play, then yeah, man. And it's not like Byron Jones is Mr. Shutdown. So
I like Byron Jones. He's done
a solid job, but
he ball very well. But he can cover pretty well.
Yeah, he can't just. It's not his fault. He can't justify that salary ever, bro. That's the problem with free agency. You will always overpay like 99% of the time for the guy you signed. Rarely are you going to get a Mac Hollins or something like that you get it. And, oh my God, we got to steal for the money that we're paying. It's just. It's just not normal. All right, what are you working on Sports Illustrated?
Well, I just did this morning, actually, and I'm going to continue during the week. I did the top 10 offensive plays of the 2021 season. While all the time I'm keeping an eye on the coaching search, And let me tell you, coming up with 10 off like memorable offensive plays from this season was not very easy.
Wow,
man, it was rough. I'm gonna do top 10 plays on defense. That was a little bit easier, and actually,
was like half of them Jalen Waddle plays, by the way.
Not really, because all his plays were like 3-yard gains. But there is a Jalen Waddle play.
The long one, right, and then the catch downfield, right? I mean, those two had to have been in there, right?
One of the two is in there. I don't have
the one that Philip Lindsay picked up the block and they got and the crossing pattern and went for like 60 yards.
That one's in there. That one against Carolina.
And then the other one, the pass play downfield that he threw. That
it was on my list. It was on my list to watch. It didn't make the cut for the.
And then the Gesicki 2 one-handed catches in one game.
Those are good.
They didn't make your list.
They didn't make my list. Didn't make my list.
Wow, you're tough to.
I'm not tough,
bro. Yeah. Now I'm intrigued to see what that list is.
I don't look at the list.
How in the hell are one of those Gesicki catches ain't in there? I can't think of 10 better than one of those Gesicki catches. Wow.
Well, criteria also it involves like impact on the game.
Okay.
It's not just like
okay.
And that's why the Waddle 45-yard pass against Tennessee wasn't in there because
right. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, now if the criteria, yeah, you kind of changed it there. So I got you. Now you probably made a logical list on that.
No, and you know the sad part actually is by far the easiest. That's where I had the most candidates was coming up with the 10 most forgettable plays of the year. Because there were a lot of doozies.
Yeah, and I'm sure too I had a few of those.
He had a couple. He wasn't the only one though.
No, I know, but he had a couple doozies as young quarterbacks normally do. All right, follow him on Twitter at Poupart NFL. More importantly, every Dolphin fan on the effing planet needs to bookmark his Sports Illustrated page. All right, what is it called? Miami Dolphins what daily or what is it again?
Alldolphins.com.
Alldolphins.com. That's it. Alldolphins.com. Bookmark that thing. Because that's awesome. And he's always just producing stories and stuff to make you think, which is always a beautiful thing. Follow him on Twitter at Poupart NFL. Alain, as always, you're a stud. We'll catch you later in the week, my man.
Sounds good. You be good.
There you go. Alain Poupart, baby, and our Sports Grill Miami Dolphins Insider Report.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.